Okay. Well, hi everyone. This is Naomi with Planners on Purpose. So excited to have you here. Today I have a special treat for you. We get to talk to Katherine with ORO again. She's been on the podcast once before, and she is definitely a welcome guest here, and we just enjoy having her. Again, I told you that she's the founder of ORO, and she also is a former planner, so she has a lot of information to share with us today on updates from her company, as well as we're going to talk a lot about what's been happening in the industry and how we can look forward to the future. So, Katherine, welcome to the Planners on Purpose podcast again.
Thank you so much for having me again. I've been following your podcast since, and I've loved all the guests. I think that you ask such excellent questions, and so I'm honored to be back on your show, Naeem.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, for those of you that were not able to view our previous episode, I will link that here so that you'll be able to hear a lot more about Katherine, about her company. But can you give them a brief update about you and just, you know, your story?
Absolutely. So my story is I came from destination management, then I started my own luxury planning firm in Colorado. I worked a lot in the mountain towns, and I found that there wasn't an app for planners in an age where there's an app for everything, especially leaving COVID with everything being so digital. Um, I know a lot of people can relate to this conversation that way. I really felt like we needed something. And so I teamed up with my business partner from Microsoft. And so we've been going down this road for 3 years. So we started just before the pandemic, and here we are today. So we have been excited to be able to have an all-in-one planning platform for event planners specifically.
Hmm. And thank you so much for taking us a tour of that product. How has it been? I've been excited to ask you this question because, like you mentioned, you started the company right before the pandemic, and then so we had to go through it, right? So, how are things at Oro?
Well, it was so great to have that opportunity, actually. It was kind of a blessing in disguise being able to have so many planners be able to beta test. Some of them had slow events rolling out. And so we were really able to fine tune. Since we were made by planners for planners, we really listened to everyone's feedback. And so we're really happy that in June, so in a couple weeks here, we will actually have a design board out for everyone to be able to use. And we are over the moon excited to be able to add this feature onto our platform. So we listened to people's feedback, and here we are responding.
Oh, well, that's exciting. So, tell us a little bit more. What does this design board, consist of?
Absolutely. So with our design board, you'll be able to send it to vendors specifically, just like you were before with all their specific timeline information. But this way you're able to attach those pictures. And I know a lot of planners like to attach pictures to their timelines
Yes.
specifically with the different items. And so this is a way that you can share all those different images, or even if you're talking to vendors and you're like, hey, this is the direction that my client wants to be heading. You can send them those just early design boards. You can break out the different boards. And so it's just a collage of pictures, but you can also use previous events from here. So if you're trying to send something to potential clients, or maybe a client that doesn't necessarily know what should be happening in a specific venue that you work in a lot,
Mhm.
you're able to create a design board specific for your client, and they're able to access it through the app. So we're very excited to have these kind of two different dynamic, um, I guess, views for the design board.
Well, and it just makes sense because I feel like people like to, it makes me think about Instagram, and I don't know if that's
Mhm.
similar to what you have, but it helps you to be a little bit more creative with what you're planning too. Have you found that be something that also helps with the planner being more creative, putting different images together and themes together for their programs?
Absolutely. And it's really nice when you're on site, or if you're doing, the last minute floral arrangements with your florist,
Oh,
to be able to
yes.
take those snapshot pictures, be able to add them really quickly to the floral design board. And those pictures are the last pictures that pop up. So when you're sending that last minute program of events to your florist, you're able to say, hey, remember, these are the arrangements that we were making in your shop last week or the week before. These are what my client's expecting. So you can just keep reiterating those same points to your vendors, which is really exciting for us.
No, that's so amazing. So this is the time, if you haven't taken a look at Oro, this is probably a really great time to do that, especially as we're headed into more in-person programming, hopefully.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are really excited for that too. So your product is definitely helping just with the creativity and helping with that overall planning process. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, thank you. We think so.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So, I know you mentioned you had to go through the pandemic and it was an opportunity. Of course, you were able to do the design board. That's amazing. So, what other learnings have your company been able to acquire based off of this pandemic? What have you come out just being all knowledgeable about?
I don't know if I'm all knowledgeable. I would love to be able to
I know
take
I
it to
took
the
that a little
title.
bit farther, but yeah.
It's been really interesting to be able to watch the different states be able to navigate the different regulations, either from the CDC or from their own state and even in their own county, because a lot of planners, we aren't just planning in one county or in one venue. We are all over the place and sometimes even in separate states. So to be able to navigate those waters and be able to watch that from like a bird's eye view of, and especially since over the weekend, the CDC is saying that we can now enter places if you've been fully vaccinated. So that's going to create a whole new challenge for planners. And so it's kind of fun to be able to watch everything from my point of view because we used to have plan A, B, and maybe C. And now we have like A through E, F, maybe
Yes.
even G, just to accommodate all these different things. And so what we're seeing a lot is a lot of indoor outdoor venues so that we can accommodate those that maybe haven't been fully vaccinated yet or even having children at the wedding so that they don't feel excluded since they'll probably still be wearing a mask here for a bit. So it's fun to be able to see these different kind of event touches happening to make everyone feel special and included. But I'm happy that live events are coming back everywhere.
I agree. I think everyone's just happy to have some events coming in the door and for us to start working on hybrid and on in-person events because we all know that's where the magic happens, right? But you bring up an interesting point, especially about the planners now having this whole array of options for safety. I know that I was reading an article, believe it was on Preview, and they had mentioned that they kind of wish that the CDC didn't say what they said because now it puts a whole bunch of ambiguity around what to do in terms of keeping people safe. So it comes down to more of the company, right, and the planner making those decisions in consultation with one another to figure out, hey, how do we keep people safe? So is that what you're saying as well?
Well, and absolutely. And, we're seeing a big staff shortage because of what happened with the CDC as well. So a lot of states were already putting out their dates for later in the summer. We, as planners, have already decided, okay, so these are the events that are going to be happening this way. These events will be happening this way. And then once we kind of get to the opening date for whatever state it is, we'll be able to move in that better direction. Or even the states that are already open, obviously they've been well adjusted by now. But for everyone else, like now all of a sudden we can go into a restaurant, we don't have to wear a mask anymore. And we're all like, what? I feel weird. I can see people smiling again.
Exactly. Yes.
So it's just like a 180 overnight. And so it's just kind of re-navigating these waters, just like we were back in March. So, and 2020, not even 2021. So it's just kind of like Apple box turnover all over again. So I
Yes.
feel for the planners out there, but I feel like the next few weeks are going to be still a little bit more rough and tumble than it would be normally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with everything you said. So, given that it's going to be rough and, we have so many other things to consider, what do you feel as though planners should keep in mind when they're planning moving forward? What tips do you have for some planners on what things to consider when moving forward with their events now?
Well, it's funny if you had asked me this like a few months ago, and I'm sure we did discuss it then as well. I would have been saying something completely different. But with India and some of these other countries,
Oh,
even
yes.
Italy shutting down a couple different times here, it's not out of the question, I don't think, for
Mhm.
the US to possibly even just put some tighter regulations on us or anything else. And so I think that we need to continue to plan for the rest of the year for
Mhm.
A, B, C, D, but just
EFG.
making sure, right? Just making sure that we we are optimistic that we are fully open and we can do our normal events like we would before, but also have those backup contingencies of, well, what about if we can't? Can we do things outside, or do we need to make things smaller? Is the venue going to be big enough, or do we have to cut down on our guest count now, even from what we invited initially? And so I think that there's still going to be some changes that are happening on a fairly regular basis, at least through the summer.
Mhm. I agree, and it makes me wonder if the hotels too, if they're ready. I'm pretty sure they are because they've been open. I know I took a personal trip and we went to Utah during like spring break. Not Utah, South Dakota during spring break, but the hotels were really packed. But now it's more of the conferences, right, that are coming back in the events. Are you seeing that they're ready? Do they have to get staffed up? What is your takeaway or insight that you've seen on your end from that?
I've actually been reading a lot of articles, like Colorado and a few other states have been trying to promote hospitality because it took such a hard hit. I mean, having 45% of the workforce of hospitality just
Mm-hmm.
demolished overnight in March 2020. It's nice that these states are saying, hey, we recognize what happened. So for planners to be able to get a tax incentive this next year, if they promote so many hotel rooms, if they do so many hotel blocks, and really promoting our hotel and hospitality industry, I think that that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think that we're all still trying to work together to help our hotels kind of come back from all of
Mm-hmm.
this. But I think that it's still going to take another few months for them to be fully staffed and fully trained. I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's part of the problem that we're going to start seeing here for a little bit, is that some of these states, all of a sudden they went from 50% capacity or maybe 75,
Yeah.
and now they're at 100 and they're fully operational. They can have events, but they just don't have the staff for it, or they're not trained well enough yet. So I think that there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here.
Well, it's funny because I was out with some of my colleagues the other day, and we were just talking about, oh my gosh, how do I fill out a contract again? I feel like we've gotten so complacent during these months as well, even on the planner side. It's like, how do I do that again? So I feel like the training probably definitely is on the hotel side, but also on the planner side with, what are some things I need to consider? How do I do this planning from A to Z again? Because virtual programming is completely, it's a different thing onto its own
Absolutely.
versus in person. So I'm sure you're hearing that from the planners as well.
I think that's such an excellent point. And we're seeing a lot of like the COVID language in um, contracts too,
Mhm.
that is very new to planners. And so there's just a lot of new language that's being added. It's no longer under force majeure. Like we're just seeing a lot of contract changes. All those lawyers have to get their little digs in there for us, that we have to navigate new waters.
Mhm.
But there's less negotiation that's happening. And so I wish that we could see a little bit more negotiation happening, especially
Yeah.
from the hotels that are suffering so much. They need to be a little bit more flexible with the planners, I think, because they're going to end up losing business in the long run with this, because planners aren't going to want to keep dealing with the inflexibleness, because we all have to be flexible and we all need to be flexible together.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Because we've gone on this ride together, right? So
Right.
any flexibility that we can have, that would be that would be so much to have. Tell me a little bit about how you've been experiencing hybrid meetings, especially with your current planning tool, but just what you're seeing from planners or may even be doing yourself. Have have hybrid meetings caught on yet? Have you seen it caught on? And what do you really think about hybrid moving forward? Do you think that it will catch wind and go?
We've had a couple that have been planned on our platform, and I've actually attended some of these hybrid events from the digital side of it.
Mhm.
And I'm not a huge fan because
No.
I think I'm an extrovert. I want to be around people. I just happen to not live in the state where they were doing the live event, so I really wanted to go. But I think that we'll see hybrid events quickly phased out here, especially if we stay open in all the different states, because people need that social interaction. And that's why we attend these conferences. They're expensive anyways. And to have to do both the hybrid portion and the live events, like how do you do the pricing structure for that? So
True.
that's always a little bit different. So I think it's just kind of a headache more than anything for a lot of planners to be able to do that. I know some of them have mastered it and they're just moving forward with it, but I think they'll be really happy once we move to just live events again.
That's true. And I'm hearing it from both ends where many clients are saying, "Hey, we just want to go in person. There's not even going to be this virtual option. If you can come in person, then that's what we want." And part of me wishes that the hybrid does catch some type of win because for me being a mom and just my time is thin, it would be great to have that virtual opt-in or hybrid opt-in to certain programs, because I think people are going to be highly selective of what they choose to attend now since they've been through this pandemic. So it'd be really interesting to see how, I guess,
Yeah.
how the world adopts hybrid moving forward.
I feel like our corporate companies are going to be the ones that really dictate that. We're seeing a lot of people that are resisting wanting to go back to the offices. So we'll probably see a large unemployment, but just more of the shifting of employment,
Mhm.
so that they can work from home. And so I bet the corporate, if there are that many employees that still want to be working from home, then I bet we will continue to see the hybrid, or to some degree, even if it's these sessions that are online. And so you can go view them whenever you want instead of having to log in at a certain time, because I know that that can be hard too. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that we'll kind of see a little bit of a hybrid mix,
Mhm.
but I think it's really going to have to come from the corporate market to really dictate that.
Yeah. And one thing you said that does ring true is that when you're in person, when you're there, you're live, you're socializing, you're with your friends and colleagues, there's just so much of an energy that comes from that exchange. It definitely is priceless. So I think it comes down to just creating those experiences, whether they're virtual, hybrid, whatever they be. You have to just be on your ball with creating the best experience ever. Because for
Absolutely.
me, virtual and hybrid, they have an experience amongst them own. And
Mhm.
if I'm at a virtual meeting and it's just the energy isn't there, it's not put together right, you just log off, right?
Right.
So there is a way that you have to put things together to get people to engage and to have that exchange. So
Yeah, good MCs are hard to find. So
exactly. Exactly. So the other format that I wanted to ask you about is this audio only format that's starting to take a little bit of a rise. I wanted to ask you about this because I saw that you're on Clubhouse and I am too. And it's been interesting just hearing the conversations, hearing being a part of conversations, and there is this freedom that comes with Clubhouse that you don't get with other events or on other social media platforms. So I would love to just get your intake on what your first impressions were from being on Clubhouse. What do you think about that platform?
yeah, Clubhouse has been such a unique platform, and I think that it came about at the right time with COVID and everything else. I've led a couple discussions in there, which has been really fun, and been able to, raise my hand, if you will, to be able to join in the conversation. But it's been nice to be able to talk to people all across the U.S. and even into Canada. Um, who have different perspectives from what they're seeing in their industry, or their niche in the industry, or what they're able to do for their clients. And so it's just nice to have that full conversation. But also, I feel like everyone is so honest about what's happening, and that we've all been able to come together because we've all been able to be so authentic, which
Mm-hmm.
is really, really nice to hear these major names in our industry say, hey, we struggled too. And you're like, wow, I don't feel so alone anymore. Like, I am so happy to hear. And, we're all sorry that everyone's struggling, but it's also nice to hear that we're all trying to bounce back together. We're all trying to navigate these new waters. And so, how are we doing that together? And
Mm.
so, it's nice to have that community, even though we're not together, we're together.
Exactly. Yes, I do agree. I think that it did come at the right time, and it allowed people to be social, allow people to have those conversations and realize that they are together in all of this and making different connections. I think it's easier to make those connections whether it's in business or, podcasting, whatever your interest in. It seems as though there's so many different places for you to just become a part of, let's say, another community. So where do you, now that the pandemic, we hope, fingers crossed, is starting to kind of, we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Do you see Clubhouse continuing to have such a great, I guess, impact and rise and being so popular?
I think that everyone in the industry is so busy and focused on these crazy wave and influx of potentially new clients coming at them that there is going to be a huge slowdown. But I think that we'll see it start to pick up again once we're all kind of slow again, maybe that December, January kind of time frame. I think Clubhouse will kind of gain some momentum back again. But I think for the next 18 months, was we see this craze in events, because I feel like it's the roaring 20s all over again. Um,
Yes.
I think that it will just be so crazy and people will really relish their downtime. But I think
Mhm.
eventually people will come back to a Clubhouse or something
Mhm.
like that kind of platform and be able to come together and say, hey, I experienced these problems in my events. Does anyone have any advice? Or I'm looking to move in this type of industry. What do you think?
Mhm.
Or even just, I want to go abroad and plan events. Like, are
Yeah.
there people out there that are planning events more globally than just in their little niche area? So I think that it will start to come back, but I think that we need the world to kind of calm down with events first.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to figure out what we're working with first, right? Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and especially when, I'm starting to hear, oh, the India strain is in the UK and they might be looking at another lockdown. And so when you hear things like that, you're like, oh gosh, I hope we're in the clear for
Absolutely.
moving forward. Oh gosh. So what do you see as the trends for the end of 2021 going into 2022? Hopefully we gain traction with those in-person events, but what other trends, whether they be trends for events, digital trends, what other trends are you seeing within the next year?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of the indoor outdoor venues, which is kind of unique because it is summertime in states like Colorado, Utah, Michigan, and some of our more interior states that don't suffer from the humidity levels that some of the other coastal states do. Of course, they're always seeing indoor outdoor venues being used, but we're going to see that a lot more in like Texas, Florida, more of our coastal states because of the wave of what's been happening. They want to make sure everyone feels included. So that's going to be a huge wave that we're seeing in the industry. You're also just going to see bigger venues, even though, like, normally we love our venues to feel really full and tight. But I think right now, just with potential guidelines changing, everyone's going to have a much bigger venue for everything still.
Yeah.
And so it will feel like it's a little bit empty, I think, but with the right decor and the right planners, they'll be able to make that space feel so much fuller. So I think that we're also going to see the trend of maybe more decor being used, maybe more draping. But I really like the floral trend that I've seen for a while now. So I'm really hoping that that continues.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I think because people were so inside, it just helps to
Yeah,
have any
make me a
semblance.
jungle.
Yes, that would, that's probably why we're seeing that. But yes, I mean, fresh floral is just always, always amazing. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's just nice to hear what others are doing, what are some of the planning trends, and One of the things that have been interested that I would love to hear your feedback in terms of trends is how the event tech companies have just multiplied in the last year as well. I've seen that there was a post made, I think it was by Event Manager Blog, and they said event tech companies have like, I don't know, increased by fourfold in the last year. How do you see that shaping up as we go into 2022? Do you feel like they everything will stay?
Well, it's funny that all these articles are like, man, where did all these tech companies come from? And for me to be going down this journey for 3 years and like launched during the pandemic, I know a lot of these other companies have been kind of on the same track because some of us have known each other through early conferences and everything else, or just chit chatting. And so we're all like, no, we've actually been going down this road for a
For
while.
a
We've
long
been
time.
wanting events to get into the digital age. We've been wanting planners to ditch those binders. It's been exciting to see hybrid events really take off. I do hope that they stay to some capacity, but who really knows? But I think that there's always been kind of a niche for that as well. Because think
Mhm.
about storms that happen,
Yep.
or like now we've eliminated a lot of snow days in a lot of states because they can do in-person learning, at home. So it's just kind of this crazy mix that's been happening with tech companies. And I really hope that planners continue to do their research, figure out what is best for them and what their clients' needs are. And because there are a lot of tech companies coming online and we all offer something different. So I think that it's great to have this healthy competition out there.
Yeah, and I feel like for products like yours, it definitely is complementary to the planners and what they do, and it comes alongside of them, and it helps provide a way for them to digitize a lot of what is in, let's say, their big, huge binders. So there is an aspect of technology that's really great. So I certainly do hope that planners and suppliers they leverage those technologies to help them in the areas that they need help. Because now we have a lot of choices, and that's really awesome to have. And I would personally like to see a lot of these companies continue to have the the business and the demand that helps to sustain them and continue to
Absolutely.
push us forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you. This has been just amazing. I just love talking to you. I feel like we can just keep talking,
I know, I love
keep chit
it.
chatting. But why don't you just tell everyone how they can get a hold of you if they're interested in Oro? What's the best way to contact you and to find out more about Oro?
Absolutely. So our website is Oro Planner. That's OROPLANNER.com. And we are also on Instagram as Oro Planner, and we're on LinkedIn as Oro Planner. So those are the best ways to get a hold of us. I'm available for demos anytime. So all of my information's on our website. Download our free trial and give Oro a try.
Great, great. So, can you tell us what's in store? I know we're coming out with the digital plan or the design portfolio, but what else do you have coming out? Do you want to give us any type of sneak peek of something in the next year that might be rolling out, or are you gonna?
We're really going to start looking and talking to some of our nonprofits that we already work with because we have a couple board members within like our organization and stuff. So we're going to start talking to our nonprofits and see how we can really start helping them elevate their event experience. We know a lot of planners work with nonprofits, but they do require a different level of outreach to the community that we haven't quite tackled yet. And so we want to at least explore that. So that might be something that's coming online in 2021.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you for that sneak peek. Yes, and I do agree. Nonprofits and nonprofit planners really have it laid out for them, and it would be great to have some additional resources. So, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing that, and I just appreciate you being on the podcast. It was wonderful to speak with you again. Everyone, I'll make sure to link Catherine's information as well as Aura's information in the product just in the description below, and that would be all. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.